And I think we are now live. Hello everyone and welcome to the Gavra Racing GT7 Season 7 finale, round 13 here at Fuji in Japan for the final race of the season. We've got 9 drivers on tonight's grid, and without further ado, let's go through how they line up after the 15-minute qualifying session. It was a wet qualifying that quickly turned into dry conditions, and starting on the front row on pole position is Play Dutchie once again to see out the season, and a little addition to the front of his car, a nice champion decal to indicate he is the current champion this season. Well, I say this season, he won this season, not the reigning champion, but the new champion, lined up with that number 1 at the front of his car, as we've seen it so often this season. In second place, his teammate and runner-up in the championship, Bon Evil 99, in the red and white Alfa Romeo, starts alongside him on the front row of the grid. In third place, with a new livery for the season finale, myself, ex-Natty G, in third place in the McLaren, alongside another McLaren, Tobster, for the final race of the season. The two who had a nice battle in Road Atlanta start alongside each other on the second row of the grid. Just behind them, Cameron Kaboom in that Lexus starts 5th, and just behind him, Aston F1 in 6th place, nearly said 9th, because, you know, that does look like a 9, but obviously it's a 6, and it's the classic blue and orange Golf livery to see out this season. And his rival, Wolfie 907, behind him in 7th place, the Irishman looking to try and beat his nemesis in the final race of the season. The Scout Dan starts in 8th place, just behind Wolfie and just ahead of the reigning champion, Hussein 0208, who is at the back of the grid after having issues in qualifying. Couldn't participate in the 15-minute session, and will start from the back of the 9-car grid. A lot of drivers who couldn't make it to tonight's race, but the championship has been wrapped up. So this is all for a little bit of fun at the end of the day. And for those who have noticed, there's a nice blue, whites and black special livery on that Mercedes GT3. So without further ado, it's time to get into the final race of the season here at Fuji. 38 laps, 9 drivers, 5 red lights to see out this 13-round season here at Fuji, and it's lights out, and away we go. It's a good start from the front row. Bon Evil alongside in the head of Dutchie in the run down towards turn 1. It is a wet start, all 9 drivers on the intermediate tyres. Someone's off, that's Wolfie taking evasive action onto the grass and off the circuit down at turn 1. But up front, it's Dutchie and Bon Evil, the two teammates, the two Constructors' Championship winners, going side by side up the hill in towards turn 3. Topster just ahead of Natty, and Aston on the inside of the Scout down. These two teammates this season as well. A bit of a snap of oversteer from the Nissan GTR, as well as the two McLarens up in front. But it's Bon Evil who leads the field away through 100R, turn 4 and 5, into the left-hander of turn 6, goes defensive to the inside. Natty trying to work his way round the outside of Tobster. Dutchie tries to find grip on the curb, can't quite find a way past his teammate. Scout down taking a slightly different line in the background from the other cars in these wet conditions. You can see the grip meter in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Tobster defensive from Natty, trying to go round the outside. Dutchie on the inside of Bon Evil. They're temporarily 3 wide, with Tobster trying to get involved as Natty goes side by side with his McLaren rival, Toussaint, making moves up through the field up into 6th place in that Mercedes. But the two leaders side by side, Dutchie and Bon Evil, wheel to wheel, door to door in the background. Natty trying to squeeze his way through on the inside of Tobster, down towards the final couple of corners, turn 15, sorry. And still going side by side up in front of Dutchie on the inside of Bon Evil, who tries the switchback move but will set himself up for a good run down towards the first corner. Cameron Kaboom looking for a move on the inside of Marcus Armstrong, but can't quite find a way through. Where's the G gone? Where's the G gone on my name? That's going to be annoying. I better not have to change that. That better not cost me. But besides that, Bon Evil and Dutchie going side by side for a straight line speed advantage of that Alfa Romeo compared to the Porsche allows it to go from behind and in front before they get to the braking zone of turn 1. Dutchie looking for a move on his teammates, and Natty looking for a move on Tobster. As Aston goes for a move down the inside of Dan towards turn 1, and Wolfie's caught back up to the back of the pack after his excursions down at turn 1 on the opening lap. But the rain has stopped and the track is starting to dry. Lap 2 of 38. It's a slightly longer race here for the season finale. And the top 5 are still really close to each other. You can even include Fuji in that top 6 in that Mercedes after starting from the back of the pack, with spray being picked up by the intermediate tyres. But a dry line beginning to form, not quite dry enough for the slick tyres, whether it's soft or mediums we have to wait and see. It's Bonnie who leads the field in towards the chicane. Turn 10, ahead of Play Dutchy. Topster in 3rd, Nat in 4th, and Camel Kaboom in 5th, and Tuesday right up behind them in 6th place. Behind Aston and Dad in 7th and 8th, and Wolfie at the back of the pack. Bon Evil having to go slightly defensive to the inside as Dutchy trying to find a way through. Topster still trying to get involved in this battle for the top 2 positions, and Natty, Camel Kaboom, Tuesday trying to work their way into a podium position. Such a long start-finish straight. The run from turn 16, the final corner, down towards turn 1, really promotes a number of overtaking opportunities, and maybe one for Play Dutchy who's looking to try and get ahead of his teammate. We ride on board, and slowly but surely he is gaining, tucked in behind the slipstream of the Alfa Romeo, flashing his light, pulls over to the right-hand side of the circuit, which is to the inside for turn 1. Then again, it slowed down in time, goes a little bit deep. Bonnie's going to try the switch that move. Can he execute it? Not quite. Dutchy's got the traction on the exit of the corner to get the move done and complete it. By the time they get to turn 2 and up the hill and towards turn 3, going purple to the first sector, although the track is drying very quickly with nearly time for slick tyres. Tusate try to go for a move down the inside of Cameron Kaboom through 100R. Can he make this one stick? Cameron has the inside line for turn 6. But upside Dutch and Bon Evil continuing to go side by side and wheel to wheel in the opening phases of this race. Nothing to lose for the pair of them. They've both won the team's championship. It's Bon Evil on the inside, down towards the turn 10 chicane. And it's Dutchy who stays ahead by the time they get to turn 12. And that 3 of 38, and Bonnie in 2nd place ahead of Topster in 3rd. The current top 3 in this race. Behind Aston is keeping up with the back of Tuesday. Look how close the entire field is spread, albeit 9 drivers in these tricky conditions on a wet track. We're nearly at that time for slick tyres. Does anyone gamble on box at the end of this lap? Surely not. The track's still very overcast and still very wet off the racing line. Dutchy purple to sector 3 and sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 67, 1 minute 46.7. Bonnie looking for a move on the inside. Are we going to see any moves in towards turn 1? We've got Tusate going for one on Cameron Kaboom. Aston tries to follow him through. He's now going tucked in behind the Lexus for now. Bon Evil trying to look for a move on Dutch in towards turn 3. He's going to try and take a wider line through 100R, turn 4 and 5. Maybe close enough to send one down the inside towards turn 6. Interestingly, running slightly wider onto the wetter part of the circuit, maybe just to try and cool the intermediates down. As you can see by the grip mixture in the bottom left on the racing line, we are just at the crossover point between the inters and the slicks. The 2 bars often a good indicator as to when to pit for slicks or inters, and the top one are when the conditions are suggestive for full wet tyres. But at the minute our 9 drivers are still on the green stripe inter tyre, but the spray doesn't seem as bad as it was at the start of the race. Will we see a few drivers maybe gamble and pit this lap? We can see Bon Evil running wider than Dutchy, going onto a wetter part of the track. Topster as well, almost allowed Natty to go for a move up the inside. So are we going to see any drivers into the pits? Dutchy is pulling into the pits. Bon Evil staying out for another lap, as does Topster. Natty's in. Toussaint and Cameron Kaboom into the pits, as does Aston. So 3 drivers pit first for the off the intermediate tyres, going onto the slicks. Going to be a risky stop, because if they dip a wheel onto a wet part of the circuit, then it's game over. Dutchy in and out on a set of, what tyres is it? Soft compound tyres, but the track is still very wet off the racing line, and negotiates his way out of the pit lane nicely. Yellow flags up in front. That's Topster, who's made a mistake somewhere, down into 6th place. But Dutchy and Natty and Aston all survive the pit lane exit in this race. But you can see off the racing line, Bon Evil just trying to find parts of the circuit where there's still plenty of standing water to try and find, to try and cool down those intermediate tyres, just to reduce the risk of them overheating. Possibly what caused the mistake from Topster. He might have dipped a wheel onto the AstroTurf at turn 1. A very common mistake to make at Fuji. And let's have a look. Dutchy on softs, Natty on softs, Aston also on softs. So our 3 drivers on slicks have pitted for a set of soft compound tyres, as opposed to going along on mediums. But you can see Bon Evil taking a wide approach to the final corner. Not the ideal racing line, but it's where the standing water remains at the circuit. And I'm going to assume we'll be reacting to the 3 drivers who are now at the back of the pack, who are on those soft compound tyres. But the front 3 into the pits. Toussaint followed by Cameron Kaboom. Dan also into the pits. And interestingly, Wolfie stays out for another lap on the intermediate tyres. Topster though, not taking any chances, and is coming in off of those intermediates, and through goes Dutchy down the start finish straight to start lap number 6, and he's got Natty behind him, also on a set of soft compound tyres. Bon Evil out of the pit on the softs. Where's he going to filter up? Because here comes Natty down in towards turn 1. This could be close between these 2. But Bon Evil's through. Those tyres are going to be cold, and he's got to warm them up quickly and not make any mistakes. But you can see by the grip meter riding on board with some of these cars that there is a dry line on the racing line, but you can still see the standing water on the outside of 100R on the left hand side. The drivers have got to be very careful not to run wide, as you can see Natty has done there. Just forces the car to understeer off, and you can see that McLaren getting a little bit out of shape, dipping a wheel onto a puddle on the outside of the corner. So does Cameron Kaboom, getting a massive tank slapper. Someone's round in the background. Scout down doing a 360 and struggles to work his way back onto the circuit, but has done not losing too much time. Still remains ahead of Topster, but has lost a couple of seconds to Aston in front. Look at those intermediates swearing and screaming on that Alfa Romeo. Wolfie staying out for 1 lap, probably too long in this race, and pulls over to the right hand side of the circuit to pull into the pits. The white line on the through the middle of the circuit indicating the pit lane entrance, and does show quite early, so often it's clear to make whether a driver is committing to the pit lane or not. But the new front 3, Dutchy, Bonnie and Natty, as Wolfie finally pits off of those intermediate tyres, promotes everyone up an extra position. Toussaint goes up into 4th, and Cameron Kaboom into 5th, hunting down the reigning champion. That looked a little bit late down towards turn 1 from Aston, dipping a little bit of a wheel onto the curb. I saw the grip meter go up. That's a little bit late from Wolfie if he comes out of the pits into soft compound tyres. You'll have to rejoin over the AstroTurf, something you don't really want to be doing. You can nearly see Topster struggling in the background as well, just trying to straight line the car as much as possible on the exit to reduce the risk of spinning on the AstroTurf or any wet parts of the circuit. You can still see it slightly damp on the outside of the circuit as we now continue to run in dry conditions. I really hate how the game must have reduced the number of characters you could have in a nickname, because they've removed the G from my name, or not from my nickname, and it really is starting to annoy me. And that better not cost me to change it. You only get four times to change your nickname, And I've already used it once. Tobbs are now catching up to the back of Wolfie and the Scout down in this race. As the dry conditions have just started to open up the pack, we saw in the opening 4 laps when it was still under intermediate conditions how close the 9 drivers were separated, but drivers pitting a lap before or after each other has just opened up the field slightly. Let's ride on board with Hobbs' McLaren as he's in pursuit of Wolfie's Alfa Romeo, gaining and gaining all the time in the slipstream of the car in front. If you pull over to the right hand side of the circuit and go for a move, indeed he does, but you need to be careful. It is slightly left offline, but gets in front, yellow flags up in front. Who's lost it? It's Cameron Kaboomov down at turn 2, struggling for grip on those soft compound tyres, must have tipped the wheel off the racing line, possibly onto a curb, causing the car to lose the wheel. Fortunately for him, he didn't survive the barrier of the front bumper damage. Dutchy and Bonnie still 1 and 2 in this race, as they have been for a number of races this season. And that 8 of 38. Kevin Kaboom in the chat saying he put a wheel onto the extra turf on the exit of turn 1. It's a mistake that everyone's done at least once when they've raced at Fuji before, and in these tricky conditions where there are still puddles of standing water on the curbs. You can see there lots. I was going to say let's watch to see if anyone takes any curbs, but you can see now the grip meter in the bottom left is starting to increase as it goes slightly offline even onto the inside curb. Still some standing water being thrown up from the tyres. Meanwhile up front, Bonnie and Dutchy still going side by side down the start finish straight in towards turn 1. Bonnie was got ahead before they even crossed the line, topping the purple sector, and a huge fastest lap of the race. Cam Dutchy challenged going in towards turn 1, riding on board. Not on this occasion, but Bonnie's gone relatively slowly compared to Play Dutchy, taking it a little bit more cautiously. Dutchy wanted to get the foot down as soon as possible, nearly ran into the back of his teammate. And the result was cost him 3 tenths through sector 1. Cameron Kaboom now in 6th place behind Aston. Tobbs has got ahead of Dan going in towards turn 1. The British McLaren ahead of the German, not the German Nissan, the Japanese Nissan. The German driver now ahead of the Brit in the battle for 7th place. Tobbs doing a recovery drive through the field after a spin in the opening couple of laps. That recovery drive is going to be made slightly easier with Cameron Kaboom's 1 second time penalty that he has collected somewhere. My best guess is down at turn 3, the fast left-hander corner. It's really easy to either cut on the inside or take too much speed and exceed track limits on the exit. Just over the 15-minute mark, and it's still very overcast here at Fuji. Whether the conditions will clear up, we'll have to wait and see. There's still a number of laps left in this race. It's actually getting a little bit loosey-goosey on the exit of turn 16, which won't help his pursuit of his teammate up in front. Even though they're going down the start-finish straight, you can still see there's some standing water on the racing line, albeit a little bit. The dry line appears to be in the middle of the circuit down at turn 1, which will make overtaking slightly difficult on the inside. But the top 4, Bonnie, Dutchy, Natty and Toussaint, all making their way through turn 3 relatively close to each other. I'd say they're in the range of a mistake. Speaking of, I'm not sure where Tobbs has come from. Oh yes, Cameron Kaboom had a 1 second time penalty, but he moves his way up into 6th place, and we'll be hoping the rest of his race is mistake 3. And he's now back into the top 6 and has Aston F1 in front of him to try and hunt down in that Ford GT. Having to still go defensive from Cameron Kaboom behind, but the move's not done just yet, because Cameron's going to try and fight this one back to the outside of turn 4, now turn 5. But Topska does enough just to stay ahead, and this battling's just bringing down and Wolfie ever so closer, and they can just tow them two along. Promote them up a couple of extra places to score some more points here in the season finale. Round 13, here goes Cameron Kaboom down towards turn 10, but covered by Topsy in front. What a great battle for 6th place we've got on our hands between these 4 drivers. Going through turn 13 now, this right-hander. And it is just starting to rain. The wipers are on. Have the leaders reacted in time for this? Dutchy's into the pit. Natty and Bon Evil staying out. Toussaint also staying out. But rain on lap 10. And it's coming down pretty quickly. Anyone into the pits? Aston into the pits. Cameron Kaboom appears to be staying out. What about Topster? He's over the white line. Appears to be coming into the pit lane. Is this the right call? Wolfie's also into the pits. So on lap 10, at the start of lap 11, it has started to rain. Dutchy onto the intermediate tyres and has come out ahead of Cameron Kaboom and the Scout down in 5th and 6th place. But look how quickly it's coming down here at Fuji. And the drivers who have stayed out, the top 3, are really going to struggle on those soft compound tyres, albeit the grippiest tyre out of the 3 slicks available. But Bon Evil just trying to crawl his way through the final sector. He goes deep in towards the chicane. What about the drivers behind? Toussaint nearly hits the back of Natty. I didn't even see that in the race as he goes deep through the chicane. I didn't quite see the full comment from Cameron Kaboom in the chat, but he said something about the rain looking like it wasn't going to be as long as it ended up being. And a fun fact about this race is it was supposed to start wet and dry up. You know, we'll say it at the end. I'll say it at the end. But let's just say this rain wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to stay here from the start. Look at this Natty drifting his way through the final corner in his Kiwi McLaren. Bon Evil risking it a little bit, going flat out into the pit lane. At 120 miles per hour, braking nice and early. But look at this, Natty can't even get above 70 before losing the rear. And he's round and he's backwards and he's in the barrier. It's a full 720 spin, just about keeps it within the white lines. So won't get a 3-second time penalty. Bonnie into the pits. And look at this, Dutchy on those intermediates. We go through into the lead of the race. Toussaint crawling with a 5/10 penalty in the 4th gear, just about doing 60-70 miles per hour. As Natalie eventually gets into the pit lane, Toussaint crawls into the pit lane. It's nearly time for full wet conditions. Aston, who pitted for intermediates, gets ahead of Cameron Kaboom. And what about Wolfie in 7th place on those intermediate tyres? Where's he going to filter out onto the circuit? Natty's out on intermediates. This could be relatively close with Aston going in towards the first corner, but you can see the McLaren on the left-hand side of the screen onto the track, down towards turn 1. Look how much standing water there is in the circuit. The rain has nearly stopped already. Conditions have eased off quite a bit. But despite staying out for one more lap, Bon Evil, although being jumped by Dutchy, hasn't lost too much time to the Dutchman. Whereas there's a whole, I don't know how much this gap is, there's about 12 seconds between Natty and Bon Evil. Meanwhile at turn 1, old Topster's off into the barrier. Down it to the first corner. I think that's the second time he's made that mistake and the second driver to make that mistake, but one that's so easy to do, especially when there's so much standing water off the circuit. The rain has started to continuingly disperse water onto the track. We're nearly at full wet conditions. The grip meter 2/3 of the way up the bar. So much so that even Dutchy appears to be struggling to get the car turned into turn 14. The drivers need to just focus on keeping the car on the track and on the racing line as much as possible, or the driest line. Actually drifting that McLaren, missing the back end out a little bit through a couple of these corners in the all black McLaren. But Aston not too far behind him. That 4 GT used to be one of the fastest Group 3 cars in a straight line. But after the most recent BOP update, it did struggle a little bit compared to the other cars on the grid. And that's right on board with him. You can see the wipers have stopped and the rain has stopped, and the sky is starting to clear. We look out the left window, you can see blue sky over to the left hand side of the start finish straight. So the conditions improving already. But look how much spray there is down and towards turn 1. You can see Natty making his way through the first corner on the intermediate tyres. Aston as well, walking in 5th. G7 dropping to 6th behind the Irishman, who was running last on lap 1. Now up into 5th place. Aston in 4th. And what could be his best finish of the season. We're now down to 8 drivers, which means we have lost the start down at some phase of this race between the soft and into stint. Bonnie were going a little bit deep in towards turn 10, but has got ahead of Faye Duchy somewhere in the last lap. They're going to go door to door through the chicane. It's currently not raining, but the track is still wet. You can see the spray being kicked up by the rear tyres as the two leaders going side by side through the final sector. And it's Bonnie who just about stays in front of his teammate. These two putting on a great show for us here at Fuji, but the sky is clear. The track is not. They make their way through turn 16, the final corner of this 4.8 kilometre circuit, I believe. And a long run down towards turn 1. Visually, these are probably my favourite conditions in this game. A wet track and a dry sky does make for some exciting racing, especially with the track drying up and some parts of the track being wetter than others. Provides a challenge for these 8 drivers on the grid. Dutchy and Bonnie, who have been 1 and 2 for the majority of this race. Just going through the grid on lap 14, we've got Bon Evil, who didn't quite start on pole position but has made his way up into the lead of the race. His teammate Dutchy in 2nd place. In 3rd place for now, Natty, or myself, who's not happy with his name being changed. Aston running in a best 4th place so far and walking in 5th. The Tuesday in 6th, Cameron Kaboom in 7th and Topster in 8th place, making his way down the start-finish straight. Final chicane. Not the final chicane. Final couple of corners. You can see different lines being taken by the 2 race leaders. Bon Evil opting for the wetter part of the circuit. Dutchy opting for the narrower approach to the final corner. Who does it benefit the most? I'm not too sure. Looks like they're both coming into the pits, but as they cross over the white line to continue going down the start-finish straight, Bon Evil going heavily defensive to the inside, the left-hand side of the screen, right-hand side of the circuit, before putting back over to the racing line. I'm sure Bon Evil would love to finish this race on the top step of the podium. After having a couple of poor results recently, Matthew, I'm sure, would love to finish the season on a podium after getting his first podium in his GT7 career down at Spa before going back onto the podium in the sprint race at Deep Forest Raceway, and his most recent podium at Grand Valley, finishing in 2nd place. But I'm sure Aston F1 would also love his first podium in the 1st division. Obviously, was the Drivers' Championship winner of season 3, albeit in Group B, and he beat this man behind him in 5th place. I'm sure I'd love to finish on a high after a couple of poor runs of form in Laguna Seca and Road Atlanta. The American race is not favouring Wolfie. Let's see how well he does in Japan. Currently ahead of the reigning champion, trying to close down the gap to the Group B champion of season 4. We do have a number of champions on this grid. Only 2 of them have won the 1st division. We've got Daci and Hussein, season 1, 2, well, I should say season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 champion. Daci is every season apart from 1 and 6, so that simplifies it. Obviously, Wolfie winning season 4 and Aston winning season 3 in the Group B Championship. But meanwhile, up front, Born Evil defending the inside line to Daci going in towards turn 1. The Dutchman trying to work his way around the outside of his teammates, but wasn't quite far enough alongside to go for the move. But the track is quickly drying. I think it's drying quicker than the last time we were in this position. There's not as much spray, especially going into the braking zone of turn 1. That was a little bit late from Natty. He's on a little bit of a wider line. I guess that's where there is a little bit more standing water on the track. But out in front, Born Evil leads this race. Has led quite a lot of this race, but has had his teammate close behind for company. Now, some might say having a teammate behind is nice to have a rear gunner, but I don't think Dutch is going to be playing that role in this race, especially when championship's wrapped up. He is the champion, and there's no one behind him for about 10 seconds, maybe even more. 15 seconds is the gap between second and third place in this race. The front two really nailing the strategy, pitting from the softs to the inters at the right time. That was where we saw a number of drivers gain and lose a lot of time in this race. But riding on board from the POV of the new champion, Born Evil already going defensive to the inside, throwing up a lot of spray. They're actually coming into the pits off of the intermediates. Now that's interesting. Daci and Born Evil off of the inters on lap 16 of 36. Now it's still very wet down the start-finish straight. Look how much standing water there is coming into the pit lane, and Matty also into the top 3 in off the intermediate tyres. What tyres are they going to go to? Is it a set of softs? It's fuel for Born Evil, and out already is Play Daci on a set of soft compound tyres, and he's lost the rear out of the pit lane, and Daci's round with a 3-second time penalty. What about Born Evil's reversing back onto the track? Born Evil's gone deep down at the first corner. There's still so much standing water out on the circuit. Looks like Natty's fueling to go to the end of the race. But a mistake from Daci coming out of a pit lane, and it's cost himself a 3-second time penalty for going over the white line. Natty's gone to medium compound tyres. Will that take him to the end? I'm not too sure. He's going to do about 15 laps, but he's gone off the track at turn 1 as well. Just about rejoined safely. Look at this, Aston going deep in towards the first corner as well. Calvin Kaboom, I think, is the only one who makes it, and Two Saints also lost the rear. He's gone spinning down at turn 1. And look at the wheel spin as he tries to get the car going again on the wet part of the circuit. Someone's off as well. Wolfie's off. Can Tobster negotiate the pit lane exit? Yes, he can. So Tobster and Cameron Kaboom are the only 2 drivers, I believe, who went through turn 1 and stayed on the track without spinning. Treacherous conditions. Natty's ran wide and has got off the circuit. Aston's off as well, with damage to the front left suspension. But this is the gamble for pitting early off of the soft compound tyres. There's still a lot of standing water. Look at that down at the final corner. There's a clear dry line, but there's also a clear wet patch. Someone's gone off. Who's gone off? It's Wolfie. Let's have a look and see what happened to him on the wet curve. And just a passenger at that point. So much gravel and grass being dispersed onto just off the track as well, following the spin. But that's just how tricky these conditions are. Daci slows down for 3 seconds and serves his time penalty, and somehow Cameron Kaboom has worked his way up into nearly a podium position. He's kept himself clean and quiet in this race after the slight spin down at turn 1, and now he's fighting for a podium position. Also on a set of medium compound tyres. So who's gone softs? Everyone's gone softs apart from Natty and Cameron Kaboom. They've gone onto the medium compound tyres. Looks like Natty's had a bad run from the final corner, because here comes Cameron Caboo side by side with the British driver. The two Brits wheel to wheel down towards the first corner, but they've got to be careful because there's still lots of standing water off the racing line. Cameron's gone deep in towards turn one. That allows Natty to go through on the inside, but I don't think he went deep. I think he just dipped a wheel on the inside of the curve. Let's ride on board with Toussaint, and I still think there's a lot of standing water on the inside at turn one. Yes, it is. Look at the grip meter as well. Look at the understeer Aston got down at the first corner. This is going to allow Toussaint to go to a move. Let's continue to ride on board with the Mercedes driver, but he's not going to be close enough to the back of the 4GT to go for a move. Despite the slight mistake, Cameron Caboo is not too far behind the back of that McLaren, but you can still see 4.6 seconds off their personal best. The track is still not in its best conditions as we speak. There's still a lot of standing water to be cleared. Although, having said that, there's a lot of the circuit that is actually bone dry. I think there is one racing line, as you can see, in this final sector especially. Look at the standing water on the outside of the circuit. You do not want to be going out there at any stage of this race unless it starts to rain again and you're back on intermediates or even full wet tyres. Well, I believe our closest battle in the circuit right now is the battle for 5th place between Aston and Toussaint. Two champions in two different groups. Toussaint's still got his wipers on, so maybe it's still raining on his screen, or he's got a bit of sweat dripping from his helmet. Who knows? But he's in pursuit of Aston in front. That 4GT does struggle now in a straight line, but so does that Mercedes. So the toe is being tucked up behind the Ford. It's going to be aiding Toussaint in this overtake, but brakes earlier than Aston. Or did Aston brake too late? And he's on the wet patch, and through goes Toussaint side by side with Aston F1, but up into 5th place. And that's just a key example of what happens if you dip a wheel onto the wet stuff. Beautiful blue clear skies, as you can see the mountains in the background of this beautiful racetrack here in Fuji, the Japanese Grand Prix. We're just at the halfway stage of this race, 35 minutes into a 38 lap race on lap 19. Let's go through the grid order as things stand. So Bon Evil, who started in 2nd place, is now up into the lead and played actually in 2nd place, a lot further back from his teammate than he'd wanted, after spinning at the exit of the pit lane and picking up a 3-second time penalty. But you can still see how much standing water there is on the pit lane exit. So for those drivers who need to make another pit stop for soft or medium compound tyres in this race, they're going to have to go about it very carefully as they exit the pit lane. Natty in 3rd place, ahead of Cameron Caboo in 4th. We've got Toussaint now in 5th after starting in the back of the grid. Aston in 6th, ahead of Thompson in 7th, and Wolfie in 8th. We have lost 2 drivers over the course of this race. One driver, sorry, that being the Scout, Dan. And for those eagle-eyed viewers who are watching the stream or the race back on YouTube, it is starting to get a little bit overcast in this race. We've got 2 drivers into the pits. Is this going to be for intermediates? Or is it another set of slick tyres? The tyres look slick, but that's probably a lie. And it's full wet for Aston. It's not even raining. Now it's raining. Aston's opted for a full set of wet compound tyres, and it's got the grip he needs going in towards turn 1. This could be into the Tofter as well. But it's starting to rain once again in this race. It started wet, and then it dried up, and now it's raining. And then it dried up, and now it's raining again. Bonnie's into the pit, and Dutchie's into the pit. Notice how every time it started raining, the leaders have gone through the final corner. It's almost as if they're being paid to do this. Meanwhile, Natty and Cameron Kaboom struggling in the final sector on those medium compound tyres. Natty's gone wide and off the circuit, and an oversteer slide in towards the side of Cameron Kaboom, both on medium compound tyres. The two leaders already into the pits. Can Natty negotiate the pit lane this time? After spinning on entry last time, approaching it now at 140 miles per hour, but isn't quite slowing down, nor is Cameron Kaboom, and both are off in the pit lane entrance and have made contact with the barrier on the inside. And both will probably get a 3-second time penalty as well. Damage to the front of the McLaren and the Lexus, but a massive crash. Let's watch it again. On board though, with Cameron Kaboom, you can see the McLaren in front of him also peeling off into the pit lane, but so much standing water still in the pit lane, probably caught both drivers out, and boom, there goes Natty, and there goes Cameron Kaboom. Cameron saying he's very lucky not to bounce off the divider like I did, and was able just to go straight into the pit. Someone's so far wide at the final corner, they're not even in the camera shot. There they are, Wolfie making his way back onto the track after taking a little bit of a detour to maybe say hi to one of his friends in the stands. Aston though on those full wet tyres, pitting before it even started raining, and the Gavra starting to pay off nicely for him. Natty's out of the pits on a set of intermediate tyres, and Cameron Kaboom also behind, but he's gone medium. Oh no, he's gone into. It's just got a little bit of a delayed update to the tyres after peeling out of the pits. Both drivers with 3-second time penalties after, well, I was going to say blatantly crossing the white line, but yeah. I don't think it's a penalty or an in-game penalty that can be argued all too much. But an unfortunate one. Maybe I should turn it off for next season. But the rule is you can't cross the white line, and if anyone is caught crossing the white line blatantly, then we award a post-race penalty of maybe 1.5 seconds or something. Maybe we can do that to stop that from happening, because it's an unfair penalty, but a fair penalty if you know what I mean. It was a crossing the white line, but neither driver meant it. So maybe it's something like, oh, that was look late in towards the chicane. And it's not the first time that someone's gone into the turn 10 chicane behind Natty and has gone a little bit too late. Maybe they just have something out further back of that McLaren. I don't know. But look at the lead that the leaders now have. Every time it started raining in this race, they've been fortunate enough to be down at the final corner and can peel into the pits, whereas everyone else has had to struggle in the middle of the circuit. So what I mean by the pit lane entrance rule is if you cross the white line, you get a 3-second time penalty. What I'm suggesting is if someone pulled into the pit maybe now, and you had the rule off, we award them a penalty after the race. So I don't know, it's just a suggestion, because I do think the 3 seconds is very harsh, albeit we have the penalty on reduced or weak. So you say it with a penalty as well, so I think a lot of drivers struggled with the pit lane exit. Wolfie as well with a 3-second time penalty. Bon Evil appears to have lost time to Dutchy, so maybe he had a little bit of difficulties going into the pit lane. Or maybe just or maybe he's just been caught by the rapid Dutchman. Gavra Kaboom also making a good point in the chat, saying some pit lane entrants are strict. I know the one at Watkins Lane is particularly tight and tough to get right. It would be a hard thing to monitor, but I think blatant crossing the white line we will remove if I do turn it off for next season. As if it's actually pulled into the pit, even now, you know, we could do a post-race penalty. And if you did do it now, with the penalty then, it would be awarded for crossing the white line. Let's go back to the race though, as the rain is starting to clear up here on lap 22, but the track's still wet. And at the end of the race, I won't spoil it, I'll tell you what the track conditions were meant to be, as opposed to what we got. I think what we got was more entertaining and more fun, but not what I wanted. And if you remember from the stream at Spa, I said I was going to make a song about the rain, or titled The Rain That Never Came. For this race, we got more rain than I anticipated. But look at this, Natty is in third place and has no one in front of him all the way to turn 5 on the minimap. That is the lead advantage that the front two have got, and the wrong word to use is the front two have been lucky. Oh, we've got a car off and it's tops the round again. I think that's the third time he's facing the barrier, reversing back onto the circuit down at turn 15, and it's been an unfortunate race for Topster. Just hasn't quite got to grips with the conditions, and in all fairness to the drivers, it has been a very tricky race here at Fuji. And I think our closest battle on track at the minute is the battle for 5th place between Toussaint and Aston F1, the German Mercedes against the American Ford, which will come out on top. One of these cars has won 2 races this season, the other has not won any. So we'll just have to wait and see. 4GT was a pretty decent car at the start of the game cycle, but the most recent BOP update has kind of just taken away its good qualities and kept its bad ones. But it does sound beautiful. Let's have some engine sound POV from the 4GT. Enjoy. It is a very beautiful sounding engine, but as you can see, there is another engine catching up to the back, and it's Toussaint in the Mercedes. The Inter's working better than the wets. You can see Aston's wets are starting to overheat and some wear beginning to form on the rear tyres. But down the inside goes the reigning champion. They're going to go side by side, door to door, separated by maybe the width of your iPhone. Down the start-finish straight they go. For the 23rd time this race, approaching the 24th. Toussaint gets temporarily ahead of the Ford, but Aston back alongside the Mercedes down towards turn 1, late on the brakes, and they slow it down in time. Toussaint with the outside line swoops right round the outside. Can he keep the position through the kink of turn 2? Indeed he can, and he's now up into 5th place after starting from the back of the grid. And a good move from Toussaint promotes him up an extra position, whilst the front two are already going through the final corner. Sorry guys, if you could just excuse me for 2 seconds, I will be back and I'll leave you on board with Bon Evil. Apologies about the delay. We can now get back to the action. Lap 25. Is this Natty coming into the pits? Indeed it is. The track is drying. And in off the intermediate tyres on lap 25 of 38. So does Cameron Caboon. Toussaint and Aston staying up for another lap. Wolfie is on the softs, but look how much he's struggling. And he's got rear damage as well. On to a set of, this could be mediums. It is medium. In and out of the pits for Natty. They've always lost the rear. Coming out of the pit lane and facing backwards down towards turn 1. But he's recovered it nicely. What about Cameron Caboon taking the more cautious approach? This filters back onto the track, but a mistake from Natty as Dutchie's into the pits. It was a beautiful spin, nevertheless, one that's definitely going to cost him time. Dutchie's in, off the intermediate tyres. And fuel goes into the back of the Porsche. Can he negotiate the pit lane exit this time? It's the second time, or third time at least, drivers have had to deal with these conditions, and on this occasion it's nice and cautious for Play Dutchie, and he does survive for the first corner. Not sure what's happened to Cameron Caboon, but he's now behind Topster. We're going to see him. Bonnie stayed out for another lap on intermediate tyres. Toussaint comes into the pits. Aston comes in off the wets. Maybe Aston thought it was going to rain for longer, or there was going to be more intense rain. Natty runs wide through the final corner. That's going to cost him time to the cars behind. Tops is still on the intermediate tyres. Does he stay out? Does he pit? Pulls over at the last minute into the pit lane. Are we going to see anyone else make any mistakes? There goes Natty through on the left-hand side. This could be close with Cameron Caboon coming out the Toussaint coming out of the pits. Cameron Caboon goes through turn 1 now. Aston sliding his way back onto the circuit. Just about, I was going to say just about keeps it within the white lines, but goes off the track down at turn 1, and now Ron Evil decides it's time to come into the pits and off the intermediate tyres. We'll have to fuel up for a couple of laps. Where will this put Dutchie? Down the start-finish straight is the current Drivers' Champion. Ron Evil's been released from the pit lane. Can he negotiate the pit exit? No, he can't, and he's dropped it. And it's pretty much exactly the same crash as Natty, albeit he's in an Alfa Romeo. And that was... You could put them side by side and that looked like exactly the same crash. Amazing stuff. Well, not amazing, but... Oh, we got someone off. Someone round, and it's Topster off again. And that looked like a big one. Through 100R. Turn 5, does it dip a wheel onto the wet patch or on the curb? It's on the curb. And that sends the rear round 4 spins, I think. 4.5. And there's another half, so 5. But look at the wheel spin. Struggling to even get the car going in a straight line on the wet part of the track. And here comes the race leaders. On board with Bonnie Evil, you can see the struggling Topster in front of him. Up in front, Cameron Caboon has worked his way into a podium position after being overtaken, Natty, who's now behind in the all-black McLaren. I think this is our closest battle on track. It might be battle for 5th. Oh, Wolfie's round. Wolfie's round again, and turn 6 seems to be a especially tricky part of the circuit where everyone seems to be struggling at. But I think the two drivers going through turn one could be our closest battle. Natty's lost tyres to Cameron Kaboom. So Aston and Toussaint are the closest two drivers out on circuit fighting for position. One Evil still leads this race from Playducci in second, and Cameron Kaboom now running in the podium position, and Natty not too far behind him. Looking to try and end the season on the high. So both drivers, Cameron Kaboom having a very good season this year, currently 6th in the standings, I believe. That sounded like wheel spin. Aston running wide, dipping the wheel onto the wet part of the circuit. Through the final corner. And I don't think Toussaint might be close enough actually to go for a move down towards the first corner. His wipers are still on, albeit it's now a very sunny day at Fuji, despite the rain that we've had this race. But the Brit not close enough to go for a move down towards turn one. Natty now gaining on the back of Cameron Kaboom in front, so we could have two very close battles towards the end of this race. Only 9 laps to go here at the Japanese Grand Prix. It's Bonnie who leads from his teammate Playducci in second, and Cameron Kaboom makes up the top 3, but his position on the podium is now at risk from the car behind. Marcus Armstrong and the all-black McLaren had a hunt down with a dark grey and orange Lexus in front. I believe it's dark grey. Is it dark grey? Or is it a black? Now leaning more towards the black. Let's not get bogged down on the car colours. Cameron Kaboom weaving to try and break the toe. You can see in the background the Ford GT and the Mercedes GT3 closing down on these two in front. I'm saying it's more of a dark blue. I'll take your word for it, it is your livery. Actually, now that you say that, it does look like a dark blue, especially when the close-up camera shot from the curb at turn one in the background behind. Aston in a relatively lighter blue, I think it's fair to say, going wide off the track, concedes the position to Toussaint, who definitely has a shade of blue. Very low plane. It was by very quick as well, actually. Apologies if you heard that. I mean, probably got picked up on my mic. But our closest battle right now on the circuit is between these two British drivers fighting for the final step on the podium, and only time will tell to see which one will be victorious and claiming that final spot on the podium. Adding an extra 1 to the podium count this season. It's the McLaren versus the Lexus. Both drivers on the mediums. Toussaint also on mediums, whereas Aston's gone for softs and is struggling a little bit in the final sector. The front two went for the soft compound tyres, the two behind on the mediums. So to sum up the strategy, we've gone from inters to softs, from inters to mediums, and inters to softs and mediums. Oh, Cameron Kaboom's deep. Down at the first corners, ran wide off the track. And that allows Natty to go through on the inside and takes the final podium position away from him. Although Cameron hasn't lost too much time, he's still closely following the back of that McLaren. And so with not many laps to go, we could have a showdown for third with Cameron Kaboom now behind. He's been setting the faster lap times over the past 6 laps. Can he now find the pace that he does have and use it to hunt down that McLaren? Toussaint and Aston gaining on those two in front. Tobster in 7th place ahead of Wolfie in 8th. I think those two have been lapped by the two leaders who have been on fire this race. Haven't made a mistake and have nailed the strategy every step of the way. But this race was this race is currently being streamed live in July, and well, I don't even know what the day is. I think it's the 4th day? 4th of July 2023. This race was initially raced on the 30th of June, so it was still Pride Month, hence the rainbow that's still on the side of my McLaren. But can that McLaren stay ahead of the Japanese Lexus that's hunting it down every step of the way with only 7 laps left to go? With Toussaint and Aston in hot pursuit, they can't afford to squabble too much, but it's the final race of the season. Nothing to lose, nothing to gain apart from 1 extra spot on the podium to your name. Dutch and Bonneville, the two leaders in this race, making their way down the start-finish straight. Once again, Bonneville setting the fastest lap of the race, a 38.1. It's only a 38.7 for Play Dutchy. Bonneville 5.5 tenths quicker than his teammates on the last lap, but they're both lapping significantly quicker than the two cars behind. Natty and Cameron Kaboom fighting for 3rd place, the closest two drivers out of the 8 on the circuit, both on the medium compound tyres. It's a fair fight in that respect, but both driving different cars, both have their different strengths and weaknesses. On board with Cameron Kaboom making their way through the final corner now, the long swooping right-hander of turn 16. Looks like Cameron's got a great exit. He's in the slipstream of the car in front. Which way does Natty go? He's in the middle of the circuit. Try and make it difficult for Cameron Kaboom to pick his line. Does he go left? Does he go right? He opts for the inside, the right-hand side of the track, but the left-hand side of the screen, as you see it now. Down the start-finish straight they go. Natty really squeezing Cameron to the inside. He's got a little bit late on the brakes. Down the inside, Natty switches it back, and Cameron just about keeps it within the white lines. Natty keeps 3rd place for now. Incredible racing from these two. The dying laps of this race. 6 to go now. The Toussaint and Aston gaining as these two fight for position. From memory, I don't think Natty and Cameron have had too many on-track battles this season. One that springs to mind would be a couple of laps in Spa, but other than that, nothing that's lasted as long as this has. Cameron Kaboom now down the inside of the McLaren, down towards the chicane. Natty with a textbook switchback, but is unable to execute it. Cameron Kaboom now works his way into 3rd place. But maybe Natty doesn't want to be behind, because he knows that there's a long start-finish straight in a couple of corners' time. Well, that's dependent on the driver not making a mistake through this part of the chicane. This part of the track, sorry. As Cameron Kaboom runs a little bit wide, but keeps the position for now. Natty taking a slightly wider approach to the final corner, maybe to try and get a good run on the car in front, get a good exit. The challenge for a move in towards the first corner. Cameron weaving to try and break the toe initially. Natty flashing his lights down the start-finish straight. Trying to put Cameron off just a little bit. But Cameron's unnerved, defends to the inside line. Natty now to the left-hand side, side by side with Cameron Kaboom. Who brakes later? Cameron's later on the brakes, but is it too late again? Matty switches it back to the inside and up into third place once again. These two putting on a great show here in the final few laps of the final race of the season. Cameron Kaboom saying it's hard to find the braking boards all the way over from the right hand side of the track going in towards turn 1. And it was a great fight though, really enjoyed it, so did I, and I'll be honest, I was not using the braking boards for turn 1. I was kind of using the pit lane exit line as my braking point for turn 1. I thought it was just easier to spot. So maybe I'll try and reference that when these two next go down in towards the first corner, but Gavra picked up a 1 second time penalty, and that's not going to aid his attempt at an overtake for a podium position with only 5 laps to go. Look behind as Aston and Toussaint I think are gaining on this battle for the final step on the podium. Maybe one of these two could snatch 4th place. Cameron slows down for a second, but I'll try and ride on board and try and show you the braking point I was going for, especially if I found myself in a situation. You can see the pit lane exit goes out a little bit, and that's roughly where I was braking, maybe just before it. I'll go on board with Toussaint, and it's there, that point there. Can't really see it now, but it's the bit where the pit lane white line comes out a little bit to the left hand side of the track. It's roughly where I was aiming for, just in case I found myself in a situation where I was on the right hand side, unable to spot the braking boards. But lap 35 of 38, we're nearing the end of the final race of the season, and what a race it's been. And with only 4 laps to go, I'll go through the weather as Toussaint runs wide onto the curb. Luckily for him, there's no standing water out there anymore. I wouldn't have got away with it if it was maybe 10 laps to go. A lot of people wanted rain for the final race of the season, and Fuji's a track that does have that as an option, and we haven't had much rain this season. We started with a little bit in Dragon Trout Gardens, but since then, I think any in the Nürburgring or the Red Bull Ring, or Spa or Suzuka. So I thought, let's have a little bit of fun. We'll make it start wet and then dry up, and then we can go back to the wets, and it can dry up again. You know, not too complicated. But what happened is the race started wet, as it should have done, but it didn't rain. So by the time it did rain, it dried up. So everyone's on slicks. So then it rained again, so that warranted an extra pit stop. And then it dried up again, and then we got the rain we were supposed to have, and it dried up again. So it shouldn't have been a 5-stop, should have been a 3-stop, into slip, 4-stop maybe. No, it should have been a 3-stop. Slicks, so starting on inters, and then going slicks into slicks. That's what it should have been, but it ended up being into slick, into slick, into slick. More fun, but from a driver's perspective, more annoying. That's why I'd done it like that, as it was the final race of the season. There's nothing to play for. We can have a bit of fun with the weather. Had there still been a championship to have been decided, I probably would have just gone wet to dry or dry to wet. Also, the rain settings 1, 2, 3 and 4 don't actually work. They don't actually give you any rain. If you have it on equal conditions, it just about rains. So that's why the track has to get wet so quickly for it to just actually rain in this game. I mean, as you saw on the start, I set the starting conditions to 6, 6, 5. There's 8 seconds for wet weather, and I went 6, 6 and 5 for the first 3 out of 9 bars, and it rained after 10 laps. It took 10 laps to get any rain actually falling on the circuit. So that's why it started wet, and that rain, the first set of inter-stops that came, it should have been the same wet weather from the start. So it should have rained for the first, what was it, 15 laps? Then dried up, and then wet again, And then this final stint actually played out really nicely because it should have been a pit between the mediums and the softs. As you can see, with only 2 laps to go, Dutch and Bonnie starting their final laps, the softs are starting to struggle, which is why the medium runners like myself and Cameron Kaboom would have, came into play. But the gaps were just so big from all the drama that it never happened. But hey, it was still a fun race. I really enjoyed it. And it did warrant a few mistakes, which is the challenge of racing in changeable conditions. However, I didn't want it to change that much, but it was still fun nevertheless. Unfortunately, I have to say this, we're on the final lap of the final race of the season. It's nearly over, and Bon Evil is on set to win the final race here at Fuji. We've still got positions to be decided though, because Cameron Kaboom is gaining on Natty, who appears to be struggling for a little bit of pace in the final few paces of this race. But you have to say it's been an incredible drive from the front too, not only this race but all season long. Bon Evil, if you remember from pre-season testing, he was my prediction to win the championship if it weren't to be Dutchy. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. However, the Brit has proved a lot of, doubters wrong. And with this position, will overtake Piero in the championship and finish second place. He might not have beaten his teammate in the championship, but he's beaten him here tonight. And rounds the final corner for the final time in the final race of the season. Bon Evil picks up another win this season, crosses the line first, and wins the Japanese Grand Prix ahead of Dutchy in second. Meanwhile, the battle for third place is about to be underway because here comes Natty and Cameron Kaboom now side by side through 100R, turn 4 and turn 5. The McLaren and the Lexus putting on a great show to the line. But who's going to come out on top? Natty moving over to the left-hand side of the track to go defensive for turn 6 as it compromises right down towards the hairpin at turn 10. How it's turn 10, I don't know. And they're now side by side. Natty on the inside if they crash. Toussaint could be there to pick up the pieces behind. Wheel to wheel, the all-black McLaren now ahead of the blue, orange and silver Lexus. They're still going side by side through the chicane. Natty now in third place, but is under pressure from Cameron Kaboom, who finds a room on the inside. Natty leaving the door open, wheel to wheel, now through the final couple of corners, the left-hander of turn 14. Natty's run wide, open the door for Cameron Kaboom, who swoops his way down the inside for the final corner. Can Natty set himself up for a good exit? Up to the line, riding on board. Cameron's weaving to try and break the toe. Moves over to the right, back over to the left, now into the middle of the circuit. Is it going to be enough for Natty to get third? I don't think it is. Cameron Kaboom finishes the final race in third, and Natty in fourth, and Toussaint in fifth, and Aston in sixth, Wolfie in seventh, and Topster and Dan not finishing this race. But let's go through the grid for one final time of this incredible season. Wolfie in seventh, Aston in sixth, the reigning champion in fifth, Natty in fourth, your top three, Cameron in third, your driver's champion Play Dutchy, and your race winner Bon Evil. We'll get a picture of the race winner as we always do. There we go. So there's Bon Evil's race winning photo. We'll shoot that. Incredibly slow, just like, I don't know, Dutchy. There we go, there's your race winner, Bon Evil 99. So take a picture of it if you will. But unfortunately, we can't stay on this screen for too long because we've got a little bit of a surprise. The traditional post-season donuts. I think it's this one. So I'm going to sit back, relax. Will we get copyrighted for this? Probably. Let's not do that. Let's not do it. I don't think it comes under the non-copyrighted song. I'm going to sit back. Let's do some post-race donuts. But without further ado, it's now time to send off this season. thank you to all the drivers and spectators who have been with us along the way. Let's now do a quick season review from this incredible season. We've had action from round 1 to 13. Let's start off in the Red Bull Ring, where Plade actually took his first win, well, the first win of the season, and followed by Piero and Cameron completing in third. But there's a grand slam in Sardinia for this man, Don Evil. Brands Hatch saw Duchy back on the podium and went for 4 consecutive wins at Brands Hatch Spa, the Nürburgring Dragon Trail before. Setting another win in Deep Forest Raceway, but didn't quite win the sprint. 2 won in Mount Panorama, and Bonnie won in Grand Valley. Road Atlanta was won by Piero. Not Piero, but Laguna Seca was won by Piero. Suzuka was championed by Play Duchy. Fuji, another race win for Bonnie under his name. But some post-race donuts to see off the season. There's a nice shot of me getting killed. Some more post-race on. I think we've got actually some convoying at the end, so we'll skip to the convoying, because I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say. There we go. Thank you everyone for tuning in for the whole season. It's been a pleasure as always. Make sure to fill out the form I sent in the PlayStation and Discord chat if you want to race next season, or if you have raced this season, please leave your feedback below. It should only take a couple of minutes. Thank you very much. What else? Make sure to like and subscribe. Please do that. But yeah, we should get a new season started straight away. Maybe August or September will be the start of the next season, and we'll do events around Christmas time. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I've been XXG. I hope you guys have enjoyed this season as much as I have. And yeah, that's it. Very sad times. That's it for Season 7. On to Season 8. And across the line. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.